Respectability and painful memories. B. It has nothing to do with how you wear your pants or how you style your hair. The breach is as intentional as policy, as intentional as the forgetting that follows. The breach allows for the efficient sorting of the plundered from the plunderers, the enslaved from the enslavers, sharecroppers from landholders, cannibals from food. The forgetting is habit, is yet another necessary component to the dream. They have forgotten the scale of theft that enriched them in slavery, the terror that allowed them for a century to pilfer the vote, pilfer the vote, the segregationist policies that gave them their suburbs. They have forgotten because to remember to tumble them out of the beautiful dream and force them to live down here with us, down here in the world. I am convinced that the dreamers, at least the dreamers of today, would rather live white than to live free. To awaken them is to reveal that they are an empire of humans, and like all empires of humans, are built on the destruction of the body. It is to strain their nobility, to make them vulnerable, fallible, breakable humans. Question 3. Black Americans have long clung to a politics of respectability. Do you believe that how you wear your pants, style your hair, speak the King's English, drive the best cars, live in the best homes, attend the best schools, or other elements of respectability policies can save you from the ravenous appetites of cannibals? Why or why not?
Mm-mm.
You want to start us off on that, Kim?
Sure. I just, as you continue to live and grow, different things change. And I always thought that I could obtain respectability by being educated and how I spoke and how I dressed and how I wore my hair. And so I've had the perms and, the big Fortune 500 jobs and never really fit. Just never really fit, but still felt that the dream was attainable. So
none of that ever felt comfortable, felt like a good fit.
well, the idea that I could attain the dream felt real. It felt like something that I could have, especially being a child of the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like the civil rights movement would work and that we would fix America. Somehow in my young mind, I felt that. And recently, with all of the deaths, I just have slowly over the decades don't feel that way as much. But when Sandra Blanche, I want to say,
Bland?
Bland, thank you. When she was murdered, it just kind of said to me, they're coming after all of us, and then no one is safe. And I remember being pulled over by the police maybe 2 years ago, and I was terrified. I was terrified that they would shoot me, and I could not believe that I wasn't aware of that fear. And so I had a tail light that was out, and they just wanted me to get the tail light fixed. But I sat there stunned that this was my reaction to them. And I never knew that I even felt that way. So I don't necessarily believe in the dream the way I had. I just felt like it's time now to just educate yourself and be more of an activist. So that's the way I feel now.
Okay, thank you.
Wow. Now, I never had any specific experiences, but the way that the more I live, the more I look at society, I think there's really no way to be appreciated by people who don't want to appreciate you.
Mm.
It doesn't matter how well you speak, they'll condescend that. Like they'll say, "Oh, you speak so well for a black man."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you speak so well. Well, that's a nice little insult, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How am I supposed to speak?
Hmm.
Even if the more you try to fit in, or the things that we do that are proper, even if we don't do anything that's considered ghetto to them, there'll still be another reason to nitpick, and another reason on top of that. There'll always be a reason when you're looking to hate somebody. You know, you'll never just you'll never just equate to perfect. Even if you do, if you follow all the mannerisms and all the things that people think are respectable about society, you can be the smartest. You can go to Harvard Law. You can be the president. You know, you can have multiple degrees, and you'll still just be that black guy who could get shot down at any moment. I don't know that you don't. I think we have to stop living for their standards. The only way to live is to live for your standard, or to make a standard for ourselves that we agree is something, and not based on what society will try to tell us is acceptable. Because if they weren't going to accept us yesterday, they're not going to accept us tomorrow.
Mm.
You know, you can't live by somebody. You can't live by a hater's standard and expect it to change.
Yeah.
No, nothing that you do. You pull your pants up, you're still a nigger. You do this, you're still a nigger. You still are whatever label they feel like throwing at you, no matter how well you do. So we have to stop measuring ourselves by a standard that we'll never be able to live by.
I think that's what I learned. Um, you know, because I grew up moving across the country, um, and again with that question about what's wrong with black people, um, you know, I could eventually see that a lot of what was wrong with them had to do with what was wrong with white people. And so, unlike you, Kim, I never thought that, because Kim and I are the exact same age, and I never thought that the civil rights movement um, was a done deal. I always saw it as an experiment, and I was hoping that other black people were seeing it as an experiment, and that the day would come when we would need to evaluate how well is this experiment working. And you know, if it's working, great, fine. But if it's not working, then what, you know, what is the next step? What else must be done? And so, because living around white people, what as a child, what I saw was their hatred was deep, thick, you know, ingrained, and not inclined to go anywhere anytime soon, simply because the laws had changed. So it just seemed always clear to me that changing the laws is one thing, and it, you know, it was a necessary first step in my mind, but it's very different from changing people's hearts and minds. And you know, one of the things that comes up in this, really throughout the book with Ta-Nehisi, is I think he really didn't get the strategy of nonviolence. You know, because he's mentioned a couple of times. I don't understand how those, you know, civil rights workers could hurl their bodies, you know, at all of these hateful people. And you know, and in this last chapter, he mentions to his son, um, you know, that perhaps the point of the movement was changing the minds of white people. And You know, I kind of struggle with that piece of the book. Oh, am I out of time already?
As always, don't worry about it.
Can I
Give
say
me
one more
another
thing?
minute, please.
Don't worry about it. Go
No.
ahead.
But no, I mean, I think that you know, as much I agree with Dean that, you know, no matter how respectable we try to be, that, you know, that doesn't change how people see this. And the work of how they see us is their work, not our work.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, I never thought, you know, we live in the suburbs, and both my children, Clint has grown up exclusively in a predominantly white suburb, and Aaron has grown up in a predominantly white suburbs. Matter of fact, he was the only child, black child, in elementary school at one point, for at least since he was 6 years old. And I didn't come here for a dream. I came here actually to escape the plunder from my own people in my own neighborhood, not knowing that I would be equally as plundered when I got here. You see what I'm saying? So it wasn't like I came to escape a dream and I thought if I walked different, talk different, if my children were educated. I've never been into that. I was trying to escape one plunder and have my sons actually have a better chance, I thought, of growing up and living long enough to be an adult, and came right in from one plunder to the next. So, and yeah, and risk them equally as much. Inadvertently, you know. So it wasn't like I said, if I moved to the suburbs, I'm one of those Negroes that have arrived. No. I was trying to escape the plunder of the city, of the ghetto, and bring them to a place where I thought maybe something for them, and then you get here, bang.
Well, that's the trap.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it really was not a win-win situation. You know, and of course, in retrospect, I would have known that. I would have no idea until I experienced both that I escaped nothing. Matter of fact, I think I worked harder. I think I had to actually, my work as a mother raising my sons in a predominantly, if not all white area, was 20 times probably harder. It might have been a few bullets. And when you say that, a lot of folks don't understand that. But believe me when I tell you, when you have to be vigilant, I have to be even more vigilant over my children. Even more vigilant. You know, so, no, I don't think by changing who you are, although I do have people that do believe that, even family members, going to the best of Ivy League schools, you know, walking right, talking right, wearing the right clothes would make a difference. And they soon found out, which is really horrifying for them, that it's not that way. So you just got to be yourself. You have to please yourself first. And if you're good to yourself, and you feel good about yourself, then maybe someone else will feel those vibes, and your time will probably be, I'm sure, it'd be more beneficial to everyone just being who you are. Doesn't, you know, it's not going to make a difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the protests happening on the Ivy League campuses, you know, as we speak,
Yes.
are evident that
Why are they protesting?
racism,
Mm-hmm.
you know, racism, racist symbols. At Harvard, the faces of the black professors on a picture have been defaced, and you know, and you know, all that kind of stuff that's been going on for a long time. But you know, and then there's another recent story about a young black woman living in a predominantly white area, and she was walking in her home, and for some reason the police were called.
Well, because it looked too nice or something? They didn't believe she lived there?
I don't know. I mean, it's like the thing that happened to Professor Gates, you know. But Anyway, that's as you said, Dean. That's the trap.